What's cracking, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel and thank y'all for tuning in. Unless you've been living under a rock, then you probably saw that we just finished up the SMX World Championship Playoff Nationals out in Las Vegas, Nevada. And man, did we have ourselves an insane finale. It delivered, call it UPS. Honestly, the fans probably couldn't ask for anything more, but today we're going to talk about the main attraction of these final three playoff rounds, and that's the cash money. We'll dive into all the figures on how much money these guys made while racing these final three playoff rounds. And this whole new concept of the playoffs and the World Championship and all this, it's totally for TV. The money came from NBC, and with that comes an absence of manufacturer bonuses from the teams. And take this with a grain of pepper, but I think that was part of the deal with the whole having the teams race 3 extra races, is that if you're going to drag us out to more races, then you're going to have to bust out the big bucks and take care of our manufacturer bonuses because we are tapped out. So we don't have to make any assumptions or anything like that in this video. The payouts listed and all the cold hard cash lies right here. And while there may be no team bonuses, there are a few brands that pay manufacturer contingency. Yamaha, Cowie, and KTM forked over some bucks for SMX, but most of the guys that make SMX are riding for factory teams and they don't get contingency, so contingency was barely a factor in this one. And this series has per race payouts, but the big bucks come from the championship purse payout fund, and especially in the 450 class, you'll see there is a massive difference between the top 22 in points and then everybody else. And hell, there were some guys that had enough points from the seeding to where they made some decent cash without even showing up in racing. Now keep in mind, although you had to qualify for these races, these payouts are only for 3 races, which is pretty titty city if you ask me. But the money actually goes to the teams. The teams get the money and then they disperse it to the riders. Steve Mathis from PulpMX has reported that some factory teams are actually keeping a percentage of the money for the extra money they have to spend to do the extra 3 races. But luckily, it seems like there's plenty of money to go around. But at the end of the day, the playoffs have made a grueling, long season even longer. But is it worth it for the riders to make the extra money? But let's go ahead and get into the numbers that were very professionally calculated with pen and paper on my flight home from Las Vegas. And just look at how organized we are. You know we can't be wrong on any of this. But we double checked it. I'm a college dropout, but I kind of know how to do math and it should be right. Hope you guys enjoy it. To start off, we'll dive into the 250 SMX total payouts, and when you look at the numbers below, the first number is what each rider made in the per race payouts, the second number is what they made in their championship bonus payout, and if there's 3 numbers, that indicates that there might be some contingency in the contract, but I'll be honest with you guys, it's a little bit of a guess for me whether these guys get contingency or not, so for some of these secondary B-level teams, maybe they get contingency and maybe they don't. But like I said earlier, that doesn't apply to factory riders, and our entire top 10 here in the 250 class is all factory riders. But leading the way, he won the most races, he won the championship, and he made the most money. Joe Sushi Wasabi Shimoda. The dude made $112,500 in per race payouts and then $500,000 for the championship. And that brought him to a grand total of $612,500. Pretty decent for 3 races. Then in second, what an awesome season for Seth Hamaker. A true heartwarmer, one of the best guys on the track, and if you're not cheering for him yet, then damn it you should be. But $75,000 for 3 second places and then $250,000 for second in the championship brought him to $325,000. And just so you guys know, that's not exactly like all profit. To be one of the best guys in the series, it costs a lot to run a program to be good enough to do that. You need a practice mechanic, you need a place to practice, you probably need a trainer, you need a lot of stuff. So to make $325,000, that'll pay all that off plus a lot more, so super happy for Seth. Then third in the championship in his final races in the USA and his final races on a KTM. I don't even think his shock faded, but Tom Vial. Pepe netted $17,750 for the per race payouts and then $150,000 for third in the championship. That brought him to $167,750 total. And then, after a bit of a lackluster year overall, a great playoff postseason for Nate Thrasher as he gets himself $119,950. And then, here's where the math gets interesting. 5th in the championship for Hayden Deegan, a little over $55,000 for the per race payouts, and then $50,000 for 5th in the championship. And I bet a lot of you are wondering, what did his antics with Joe Shimoda, combined with his crash with Joe Shimoda and breaking his collarbone, cost Hayden Deegan overall? If Hayden had just taken off and won the race but got second in the championship, then he still would have made $300,000 from that. But instead, he went down in flames, got 9th overall on the night and 5th overall in the championship, and that lost him $247,550. And it would have been a little less than that, but the AMA hit him with insult to injury and gave him a penalty that dropped him from 4th to 5th in points, costing him an extra $50,000. And that might not be much to the Deegans. He'll be alright, he's probably not losing any sleep over it. But man, losing that kind of money in one night is kind of making me sweat. Then in 6th, you had the top wild card, Ty Masterpool, making himself a little over 35K with Jordan Smith right behind him in 7th. And this dude's an Iron Man. He went full-blown ejecto Cedo airborne, popped his shoulder out, popped it back in, and raced the night. Total grinder, and makes himself a little over $25,000 for his efforts. And then in 8th, we got another warrior. Garrett Marchbanks went down hard in Charlotte, was out for the day, but he came back, raced through injury, and made himself a little over $23,000. And as we get towards the bottom of the top 10, you can really see that the payout drops exponentially as you go down in the order. The championship payouts are pretty damn top heavy, but it's the fastest that get paid and it's the fastest that get laid. But 9 and 10, you had Levi Kitchen and Dax Bennick both making a little over $20,000. A solid series for Dylan Schwartz. He's not quite a privateer, but he's not a factory rider either, and he makes himself $20,550. And then last guy on the list, how about Lux Turner, man? Awesome series from the kid. Awesome year from the kid. Makes himself over $6,500 in the per race payouts. $13,000 for 12th in the championship, and I'm not 100% on this one, but he may or may not have gotten $1,800 from KTM contingency, and if he did, that brings him to a grand total of $21,390, and even without KTM money, that's still an awesome series for the dude. Bravo, Lux. And then as we get into the rest of the top 22, like I said, the money goes down exponentially as you go through the field, but that's just the way she goes. But in 13th, you had Drew Adams making just over $18,000, with Cullen Park right behind him in 14th making just over $17,000. A bit of a bummer series for a couple of factory riders as Max Anstey, Ryder D, and Cole Davies are 15, 16, and 17, making about $16,000, $15,000, and $12,000 respectively. 18th overall and a solid rookie season was Parker Ross as he makes himself just over $13,000. Then in 19th, the first full privateer in the lineup, and that is Gage Linville. He made $6,110 in per race payouts, $6,000 for the championship bonus for 19th overall. And he's a privateer, so I don't see any world where he wouldn't get KTM contingency, so that would get him an extra $1,300 for $13,410 total. And coming into the finale, he was sitting outside the top 22, so a hell of a ride and an awesome job to make an extra $6,000 with the triple points finale. And rounding out the top 22 are 3 riders who unfortunately did not make it through the entirety of the playoffs. Austin Forkner in 20th completed 1 race but still made $7,700 total. Max Voland in 21st, he was taken down by the fake start in St. Louis, completed 1 race but still made $5,100. And then rounding out the top 22, pour one out and a get well soon to 2 Jules Beaumer. He never made it behind the gate, but he still got 22nd overall and made $2,000. And last but not least, here's our 250 SMX wildcard payouts. Some of the wildcards are leaving with a little bit more of a full wallet than others. But the top wildcard and 6th overall was Ty Masterpool, making over $35,000. And all these wildcards had to race an LCQ wildcard race every weekend and got all the last gate picks. So as far as the series goes, this was a hell of a salvage job for Ty Masterpool and a lot of guys on this list. We talked about Lux Turner. He was the second highest placing wildcard with over 21 grand. Then it was Dax Bennick, Cullen Park, Max Anstey, and Gage Linville, all of who we have already talked about. And then we had Hunter Yoder, our 7th highest earning wildcard. He made 2 of the 3 mains, made a little over $5,800 from the per race payouts. And don't quote me on this, but he might have made $1,250 from Kawasaki contingency. So if he did, that brings him to $7,090. Then we had Henry Miller. He made 2 of the 3 mains also and made just under $6,000 from the per race payouts, $1,000 from Yamaha, and that brought him to just under $7,000 total. The 9th highest earning wildcard could fix your HVAC and shred the national, and that is Justin Rodbell. A little over $5,400 from the per race payouts and $800 from Husqvarna for making 2 of the 3 main events. That brought him to $6,220. And I said he was 9th, but now I'm seeing that I put these in the wrong damn order. 9th highest earner was actually Cole Thompson, making $5,650 from the races and $800 from Yamaha. That brought him to $6,450 total. And then the final wild card was Luke Neese. He only went to the first 2 rounds. He didn't make either of the mains, and for that, he was awarded with $3,500 for his efforts. But that's all the payout info for the 250 class. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. And now, let's get into the big dogs, the 450s. As we all know, with the championship, again, for the 3rd time in a row, is Jet Lawrence. He made $250,000 for 2 firsts and a second in the races, and then $1 million for the championship bonus. That brought his grand total to $1,250,000. Decent. Then in second, I almost felt bad for the dude until I did this math, but Hunter Lawrence, 160 grand for a fourth, a first, and a second in the races, and then $500,000 for second in the championship. That brought Hunta's total to $660,000, and when you do the math, the Lawrence family combined made $1,910,000 in 3 races. And honestly, I can barely even wrap my mind around those numbers, but that's what you get when you and your brother are the best in the world. Then in third in the championship, we didn't quite see beast mode, but Eli Tomac had a solid series, $75,000 for 3 third places, and then $250 grand for third in the championship brought him to $325,000, which apparently needed 2 equal signs. And how about Kickstart Kenny in fourth? The dude comes pretty much off the couch, does a warm-up race at Unadilla, and gets fourth in the championship. 24 grand per race, and then 200 grand for fourth in the championship brings the dude up to $224,000. Not too shabby. And then rounding out the top 5, you had the number 1 seed, Justin Cooper, 12-3 for the races, and then $150K for 5th in the championship brings the total to $162,300. And then shoot, even Cooper Webb in 6th, who kinda didn't have that great of a series, $12,800 for the races, but then $135K for 6th in the championship. And to have an off series and to still make almost $150,000, I don't know about you guys, but I probably wouldn't be complaining. A solid series from RJ Hampshire in 7th, who's just all of a sudden become a steady force on a 450. He nets himself $133,000, and that's actually a little bit less than the 8th place finisher in the championship, which was Chase Sexton. And Chase made more than RJ because he got second in Charlotte and got a good per race bonus there. But Chase made $57,100 from the 3 races and then $100 grand for 8th in the championship. That brings his total to $157,100, but if I had to guess, I think he would have gave up every single dollar he made if he could have rode a Kawasaki or some other bike in this series. I don't know what it was, but he was over the KTM. You could just tell. And then rounding out the top 10, you had Joey Savacci in 9th making just over 100 G's and Justin Barcia in 10th making $85,800. 11th place was Dylan Ferrandis, who kind of got the shaft because he wadded up on the start of the final main event of the year, and it was triple points, so he paid for it. Dropped down to 11th overall, but still made $60,400. And then 12th was Justin Hill. He kind of had the opposite effect because he came in kind of down in the points. But when triple points are on the line, he had a good night, made up a bunch of ground, and got himself 12th overall and $45,000. And then we got 13 through 22. 13th overall was top wildcard Benny Bloss on the Beta. A little over 10 grand from the per race payouts and 34 grand for 13th in the championship brought him to $44,100. 14th was Shane McElrath making $42,400. And if you aren't already, go hit the dude with the subscription on the tube. He's putting out tons of content from the races. Club MX Yamaha's Cody Schock was 15th in the championship, making himself $41,500. But I have confirmed with the team they do not get Yamaha contingency like the 16th place finisher in Valentin Guillot. He's a privateer, so he's got to get contingency. And what a story this dude's been. He comes from Switzerland, pretty much a stock bike, doesn't even get the suspension oil changed, and qualifies directly into the playoffs. $9,500 from the 3 races, 31 grand for 16th in the championship, and then an extra 3 grand from Yamaha. That brings him up to a grand total of $43,500, and this dude comes from MXGP. They don't even get paid, at least not from the promoters. They just sit around eating ramen out of a hubcap between motos, without a choice. But then in 17th, you had Dean Wilson, Grandpa Earl, the man with no knees. He didn't even do an oil pit stop, but he made $8,400 from the 3 races, 30 grand for 17th, which brings him up to $38,400. And coming into this thing, he was saying he wasn't going to race because he was too banged up. So to line it up last second and still make over 38 grand, I don't know about you guys, but I'd be pretty pumped with that. 18th in the championship was Money Marsh, Marshall Welton, and this dude knows how to make a buck. If you're handing out money, he'll take it. But he got the trifecta. He got the per race payouts, the championship bonus payout, and then $1,000 from Yamaha. That brought him to $37,700, but he ain't done. He's going back racing this weekend in Pennsylvania. It's money racing season, baby. No choice. But then in 19th, we had Malcolm Stewart, who makes $28,000 and didn't even line up behind the gate. But pour one out for the dude because he made the entire season healthy just to get hurt at the beginning of the playoffs. And had he gotten behind the gate, he would have made way more money than that. 20th in the championship was Harry Kulas. The dude was sitting on the outside looking in before Vegas, but had a good triple points national. 27 grand for 20th in the championship combined with his per race payouts and a little bit of money from Husky. That brought him to over $35,000. 21st in the championship was Mitchell Harrison, who had a bit of a bummer series. I think he had a mechanical at the final round, so not what he was looking for. But he stayed in the top 22 in the championship and caught 26 grand for 21st overall. He got his per race payouts and he got a little bit of money from Cowie, which brought him to over $35,000. And then rounding out the top 22, I know you guys are bummed we didn't see him in the playoffs because I know I am, but Aaron Plessinger didn't even do a single race, but he still made $25,000. And last but not least, the 450 SMX wildcard payouts, we had Benny Bloss as the top wildcard with 13th overall in the championship. Like we just talked about, he made himself $44,100 ahead of a lot of other guys we just talked about like Cody Schock, Dean Wilson, Marshall Welton, and Hari Kulas. And those top 5 wildcards, those are the ones who got the championship bonus, and you can see that the difference between getting a top 22 in the championship and not getting top 22 in the championship is an insane financial difference. Kulas got in the top 22 and made over $35,000, and then one spot below him is Mitchell Oldenburg. He just missed out on the bonus, he was 23rd in the points, and when you compare this to the numbers that are directly above him, only making $7,600 is a massive buzzkill. But Oldenburg made 2 of the 3 mains, and then you had Derek Drake, who only made 1 of the 3 mains. And I think I messed up on my figures here because I have him at $7,100 plus $500 from Yamaha, bringing him to a $7,600 total. But I don't think Yamaha pays contingency to their supported team, so I'm thinking Derek Drake's total is actually just $7,100, which ironically enough is actually the exact same as the next 2 guys, which are Roman Pape and Grant Harlan. Both of them only made 1 of the 3 mains, and both of them made $6,600 from the promoters, and then an extra $500 from Yamaha, totaling $7,100. Then you had Jeremy Hand, who made 2 of the 3 mains, but no Honda contingency, and he made himself $7,000. Chiz did not chiz, he only made himself 1 main and made $6,800. And last but not least, the 199, it's not Travis Pastrana, it's John Short. He didn't make any of the mains, but he fought hard and made himself $6,500. And he could have just cruised around and probably made about the same amount. Call it show up money, no choice. But that's it for today's video, and really cool to see that despite having a long, gnarly, and grueling season, racing these final 3 playoff races is very financially beneficial and very rewarding for the racers. And at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure we were all entertained, so more money for the racers, more racing, and more entertainment for us. I can't really find much to complain about here, but it was an epic season finale. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and enjoyed a little bit of insight as to what these guys are making in the playoffs. I have all the math done for Supercross, Outdoors, and the playoffs, so if you guys enjoyed this one, then I'll release another video totaling the overall payouts for the entire season. And maybe we'll even get crazy and estimate some salaries, because we know those aren't public. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about the video in the comments, and I'll catch you guys next time.